when recently retired Chief Justice Raymond Zondo led the extensive commission of inquiry into allegations of state capture, a brief and easily missed appearance was made by Kalandra Viljoen, the nominal owner and manager of Asset Movement Financial Services, AMFS. This cash-in-transit company, which conducted a suspiciously high volume of business by merely processing electronic payments between third parties, had served as the conduit for approximately 4 million rand siphoned from the airline SA Express through a company called Koraneka. The 4 million rand was merely a drop in the vast ocean of state capture and equally negligible within the operations of AMFS. However, Zondo was compelled to include a recommendation in his final report that the South African Reserve Bank, SARB, investigate the company. If only he knew. To put things in perspective, bank statements obtained by Amabungan for AMFS indicate financial flows of approximately 33 billion rand through the company from its inception in early 2015 until early 2019. A significant portion of this was revenue from a small group of gold refineries which occasionally ended up with dubious recipients. In particular, evidence has been presented suggesting that at least 5 billion rand of this amount was made up of payments to Krugerrand dealer African Medallion Group, seemingly originating largely from the micro-refinery, the Gold Kid, which used AMFS to process these payments. Some of AMFS's massive financial flows also appear to have involved smaller one-off transactions, such as the Koraneka deal mentioned earlier. The company's bank statements are filled with such incidents, including what appears to be 6 million rand received from fugitive pastor Shepherd Bushiri in December 2017, which seems to have been intended for cash delivery. After the Krugerrand transactions, the single largest coherent project that can be identified is the routing, between 2016 and 2019, of billions of rands to Aulion Global Trading in Dubai, along with a few related entities in Dubai and Hong Kong. This was done through several successive channels, with AMFS playing a key role in the process. Based on the available information, it can now be revealed that this operation involved over 5 billion rand leaving South Africa for Dubai under false pretenses over the course of 4 years. However, this figure is likely an underestimation, given the limitations of the data at hand. Alongside AMFS, this story involves a broader cast of characters, intricate financial arrangements, and according to the available information, at least 1 billion rands worth of non-existent gold traded between South Africa and Dubai. Aulion Global Trading was registered in October 2015 by the owners of the Gold Kid, Andries Gravenstein, and sanctioned money mover Howard Howie Baker's notorious gold refinery. AMFS was also set up in 2015, again with the involvement of Gravenstein, who recruited the aforementioned Kalandra Viljoen from another cash-in-transit company named Rustic Stone Trading 10, which operated in the gold sector. She was to be the sole shareholder in AMFS, which operated out of the Gold Kid's premises in Nigel. The Gold Kid immediately became AMFS's main client, even though the latter would go on to service a wider array of similar gold operations. Many of these operations have been investigated by SARS for alleged tax fraud. The three companies, the Gold Kid, Aulion and AMFS, are inextricably bound together through the involvement of Gravenstein and Howie Baker. Both Amabungan and other media publications have reported on parts of the Aulion Gold Network and its alleged receipt of the proceeds of alleged illicit cigarette sales by the Gold Leaf Tobacco Corporation, which is controlled by Simon Rudland and partner Abraham Adamji. Gold Leaf denied wrongdoing and is fighting a 2022 preservation order obtained by SARS against the company and its directors. Amabungani obtained over 5,000 emailed instructions sent by Howie Baker to AMFS Kalandra Viljoen between September 2015 and 2017. Of specific interest here is a subset of 134 of these instructions, each of which direct AMFS's Viljoen to make payments to a FNB account with the reference Sasfin payment. In each of these cases, Veronica Schubach, then manager of the Gold Kid, was copied. Coupled with evidence drawn from bank statements, this indicates that the money for Sasfin payments, at least on paper, came from Gravenstein's refinery, the Gold Kid. Tracing the ensuing bank statements clearly demonstrates how the Sasfin payment reached its actual intended beneficiary. The trail starts with the Gold Kid, AMFS's main client. In the Gold Kid account, you see 4 outgoing payments for the day, totaling just under 26 million rand. You then see these payments recognizable due to matching reference numbers arrive in AMFS's account. At AMFS, the requested amount of 17,450,673 rand is paid out to Sasfin as directed in Baker's email. Another payment of 9 million rand is also made. This does not concern us here but explains why a total of 26 million rand had originally been transferred. Now we move to Sasfin itself, or rather its transaction account held at FNB, the account Baker gave in his email. At the time, Sasfin was not a transactional bank but instead held accounts at all the other major banks. Sasfin received clients' money via these banks before paying it abroad. At FNB we see the 17,450,673 rand. Payment from AMFS arriving and on the same day being paid forward to Sasfin's account at Nedbank, mixed up with some other small amounts received on the day. This payment just reflects Sasfin's practice of settling outbound payments every day by pooling the amounts paid into different accounts in one place. At Nedbank, we again see this amount arriving and, later in the day, the exact amount requested by Baker gets paid offshore to Aulion with the reference Gold Leaf Tobacco Corp Rudland and Adam G's Cigarette Company, suggesting either Gold Leaf was involved in the scheme or that the money was ultimately theirs. Gold Leaf denied this inference. Regardless, we can see examples of this transaction train repeated at least 134 times with various supplier references, with the total value adding up to 2.7 billion rand. These transactions were justified by invoices for alleged imports generated by a broker named Salt Asset Management, which belonged to 2 associates of Baker and Gravenstein, Mohamed Khan and Sohail Jawani. Many of the invoices generated by Salt are obvious fakes. In some instances, banking details for Aulion are simply pasted onto legitimate invoices from other companies, but this is not the end of the story. Sending money offshore under false pretenses is one thing. These payments seemingly went much further, with at least a very significant portion of them entering a novel circular system which at first glance makes no sense at all. Based on the evidence available, it appears that much of the money Baker ordered to be paid to Aulion via Sasfin was for gold that existed only on paper. Let us return to the 17,450,673 rand payment we followed from the Gold Kid to Sasfin's account at Nedbank from where it was paid offshore. In Aulion's bank statements, this amount arrives with the same reference used at Sasfin Gold Leaf Tobacco Corporation. Another large payment of just over 20 million rand arrived at the same time. You can also see this payment at Nedbank and a payment bearing Gold Leaf Tobacco Corporation as a reference. Here is where things get strange. The Aulion account is quickly drained by outward payments, all marked Gold Kid, the very source of the money to begin with. All these payments from Dubai back to South Africa are visible in one of the accounts held in South Africa by the Gold Kid, and then the money is immediately paid onwards again. We can trace these payments back to AMFS where the money arrives just in time for another instruction from Baker to pay it to Sasfin in order to start the whole process over again. And here is where the true nature of the scheme seems to lie. An entirely circular flow of money from the Gold Kid to Aulion and from Aulion back to the Gold Kid. The question is, why engage in such a seemingly pointless exercise? A major clue lies in the payment references Aulion used to pay money back to the Gold Kid. Each of these are given as AL, followed by sequential numbers. In the excerpt from Aulion's account above, we saw payments marked AL67 through to AL69. These are also used in the statements of the Gold Kid when it receives the money. Scouring the Gold Kid statements reveals many more AL payments. Commencing no later than January 2016, shortly after Aulion was created. Looking at 2016 as a whole, you see at least 1.17 billion rand arrive in the Gold Kid's account through these AL payments. SARS has conducted a far-reaching audit of the Gold Kid's business. From the details of this audit, it seems that payments to Sasfin and offshore to Aulion were disguised as payments to South African suppliers of scrap gold. The gold kid was seemingly pretending to buy gold in addition to its real gold business. This interpretation is supported by the fact that the VAT invoices the gold kid used when it allegedly paid its scrap gold suppliers, in fact match payments made to Sasfin or other entities that do not appear to lead back to the suppliers. For example, on the day the payments above were being channeled to Aulion, the gold kid declared it was paying a supposed supplier called Bekusifiso Scrap. This is reflected in so-called tax-type reports it produced for SARS, in which it showed the supposed payments with the VAT supposedly paid. At the other end of the equation, the gold kid's documentation of sales perused by SARS showed it making sales to Aulion of about 1.1 billion rand, pretty much the same amount of money we saw going through the rinse cycle between South Africa and Dubai. In other words, what we see is the gold kid allegedly sending money to Aulion under the guise of buying gold domestically. This money then comes straight back to the gold kid, while it declares in the documentation perused by SARS that it is exporting gold to Aulion. The pattern suggests that not only the purchases of gold but also the sale of gold were, at least some of the time, fake. It seems that no gold ever really changed hands. Certainly not in the quantities that would match the amounts of money involved. The whole point, again, would be the claiming of VAT refunds for the fictitious exports which are zero-rated for VAT, which would have been based on, again, allegedly fictitious purchases of gold that would have come with VAT. While the documents suggest that the system described above was in full swing in 2016, it becomes harder to interpret the nature of payments made via Sasfin in 2017, not least because the gold kid switched banks from ABSA to Standard Bank and the AL references disappeared from its statements. It was previously revealed a massive laundering operation that emerged during 2018 and 2019 using the now liquidated Habib Overseas Bank. Early in 2018, an account was opened at Habib by a company named PKSA Finance. This company belonged to Mohamed Khan and partner Sohail Jawani, the aforementioned associates of Baker who gained notoriety after Khan featured prominently in an Al Jazeera documentary on a regional gold mafia last year. Over the course of 2018, PKSA received nearly 1.4 billion rand and paid most of it straight out again almost entirely to Aulion. At the same time, another entity associated with Khan, Ovenbird, opened an account at Habib. This account received 370 million rand in less than 2 months, and again paid almost all of it out to Aulion. In 2019, a new front named Actinic was created and opened several accounts at different banks, accounts from which it promptly began sending money to Aulion. From a SARS audit of one of Howie Baker's companies reveals that Actinic was also being funded by him. Combined with the earlier operation through Sasfin, this brings payments to Aulion to the region of 4.5 billion rand over 3 years. As before, a lot of the money from these new entities came from AMFS and by extension, the Gold Kid. One particularly notable source was another shadow bank in the mold of AMFS, cash and transit company Rens Contant in Transito. Also notable was another refinery named Metal in Hancors. Rens leads us beyond gold to the door of alleged tobacco smugglers associated not only with Howie Baker but also the man widely considered to be the power behind the scenes, cigarette mogul Simon Rudland. Like AMFS, Rens was seemingly just the conduit. According to records obtained, including bank statements, payments from Rens were all made on behalf of a company named Baypass Logistics. In 2017, Baypass had also funneled 324 million rand into AMFS, which, as far as can be determined, was used for purchasing Krugerrands on behalf of Howie Baker. A significant red flag surrounds this multi-million rand company. Its sole director is an individual whose last known job was at a bottle store, and who simultaneously serves as the sole director of 7 different logistics companies. Efforts to trace the true force behind Baypass lead directly to the illicit tobacco sector, particularly trade between Zimbabwe and South Africa. In Rens's internal client records, the contact for Baypass is simply listed as JC, with a Zimbabwean phone number that does not connect and an unresponsive email address. Attached to this email was a letter signed by Rens owner Christo Janza van Rensburg, requesting that JC provide a formal letter on a Baypass letterhead listing the services Rens is supposed to render. This should include collecting cash and making electronic payments to Baypass clients, said Janza van Rensburg. Crucially, however, the letter ends with a note. Just a friendly request, can you please backdate the letter to the first time we serviced Gold Leaf Tobacco Corporation on the 1st of July, 2018. You should recall that Gold Leaf is the tobacco company owned by Rudland and partner Ibrahim Adamji. The evidence thus raises the possibility that Baypass, after already moving hundreds of millions for Rudland associate Baker, became Gold Leaf's conduit for paying money to South African recipients via Rens. The shelf company vendor who registered and then sold the Baypass registration provided Amabungan with an email address for the buyer, one identifiably belonging to a Roy Mulea. This would appear to be the same Roy Mulea who made headlines in 2021 when SARS accused his company, Verbena Freight and Logistics Management, of owing an astonishing 19 billion rand in custom duties related to alleged tobacco smuggling from Zimbabwe. It is possible that there are two individuals named Roy Mulea involved in large-scale illicit cross-border activities, but additional circumstantial evidence reinforces that the buyer of Baypass and the alleged tobacco smuggler are one and the same. The SARS case against Mulea was heavily redacted in court, but mention was made of him using Verbena and 7 other companies to, on paper, import tobacco. This happens to neatly fit the existence of the 7 suspicious companies with the bottle store employee as their unlikely director. The above suggests that Baypass was associated with Gold Leaf, which makes its larger list of apparent clients all the more interesting.